Just going to do a quick check-in with everybody. Everybody doing okay? If we can kind of have a thumbs up. Is this information useful? Finding, yes, okay. See some thumbs up and some head nods and perfect. Remember, I know that there's some information that people are asking about, like the hotline numbers, and we're going to, at the end, have a concise list, and that we might put it into the chat. We will definitely email it out just so that you have contact information for each of the systems. So we are ready to move on to our next system, which is the Department of Juvenile Justice. If the people are available and can put your cameras on, it's much more engaging for the presenters when they can actually see faces. Just kind of makes it more fun for us all. And so excited to have Daniel Merrithew here with us to talk about the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Good afternoon. And as Julie said that about the camera, mine isn't working, so I apologize. But thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon, and I hope all of our presentations are very helpful to you as you try to navigate this, what can be a very complicated system. So hopefully everything you hear today is going to give you the information you need to deal with any problems that you might have at home with your children. So I'm Daniel Merrithew. I'm the Circuit 7 Chief for the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. Circuit 7 is St. Johns County, Putnam County, Flagler County, and Volusia County. Next slide. So our mission at the department is to enhance public safety through high quality, effective services for youth and families delivered by world-class professionals dedicated to building a stronger, safer Florida. The Florida Department of Juvenile Justice is a relatively young agency. We're celebrating our 30th anniversary, but we have been recognized as one of the best criminal justice agencies in the nation. And that's based on our 5 guiding principles that we have listed here. So our staff and our services are all dedicated to the success of youth and families when they come into our system. And for those in our prevention programs, youth that do not touch our system but still need our help. We've worked very hard at developing training and academies for our staff before they even assume a caseload. So we are and continue to develop a world-class team. Our leadership, the same thing, our supervisors, assistant chiefs, and chiefs, we all are required to take various leadership trainings. So our dedication to excellence through our leadership is one of our 5 guiding principles. And something within the last few years with our new secretary that we have really focused on the data that we have available to us. We do deep dives into that information to find out what is working, what isn't working, and we're committed to results based on reviewing that data. Next slide. So there are 20 judicial circuits in Florida, which correspond with the 20 circuits that DJJ serves. So as I mentioned, our Circuit 7, the 4 counties, Volusia, Flagler, St. Johns, and Putnam, that are the counties that we service in Circuit 7. Next slide. So DJJ has 4 program offices: prevention services, detention services, probation and community intervention, and residential services. And now I'll just briefly go over what those services provide. So in prevention services, these are youth that we don't ever want to have a juvenile probation officer assigned to. We want to work with these families before they pick up a charge. Our success rates for youth with prevention services is far greater than youth that go deeper into the system. So DJJ has a One Mentor, One Child program that all citizens, youth of Florida are eligible for. At the end of the presentation, there'll be a DJJ website, and you can Google Florida DJJ, and it'll have all these services on there and how you are able to refer yourself to these services. And PACE, for those of you that are familiar with PACE Center for Girls, that is a DJJ prevention service. We provide funding for that. So if you are in Volusia County, and I do believe they take some Flagler youth, for girls that can attend school at PACE Center for girls. And as I mentioned, we provide the funding, part of the funding for that. And then also the SINS fins, it's referred to, but it's a child in need of services or families in need of services. And this is our services for youth that are between the age of 6 and 17. They may be facing challenges at home or in school with truancy or running away or just defiance at home. So families are able to get help through the SINS fins program. They cannot have a DCF open referral, and they cannot have a DJJ open referral. And they cannot also not have a history of previously being delinquent, adjudicated delinquent. So on our website, as I mentioned, you can go on there and find out where and how you can make a referral for SINS fin services before the child goes deeper into the system. Next slide. So detention services. So all youth in Circuit 7 from the 4 counties that I previously mentioned, they are held at the Secure Detention Center in Daytona Beach. All of our youth, when they come into contact with law enforcement throughout the circuit, the officer calls our screening unit in Volusia County. The youth is screened to see if they meet the criteria for being held in secure detention or being placed on home detention or placed on electronic monitoring. All those decisions are made when the officer contacts our screening staff. And it's based on many different factors, their history with law enforcement, their history with DJJ, and all of that determines a score, and it will determine where the youth falls in the detention category, whether they need to be held or they can be released back into the community with some other type of supervision. As of today, we have 64 youth in secure detention in Volusia County, which is 130% of capacity. Capacity is usually high with secure detention. So if a youth is committed to the Department of Juvenile Justice, and I'll discuss commitment a little bit later, but if a child is, if the court is determined that a child is a risk to the community and needs to be in one of our residential commitment programs, by Florida law, they have to be held in secure detention until their bed becomes available. So that is another reason why the capacity at Volusia Regional Juvenile Detention Center is consistently above capacity. Next slide. So there are 20 judicial circuits and 20 DJJ circuits, as I previously mentioned, but there's also 21 detention centers around the state. And the information here is a little old, but during fiscal year 22-23, there were almost 10,000 youth that were held in secure detention throughout the state, and another 7,500 youth that were held on some other type of detention status, but not physically detained in the detention center, as I mentioned. So they could be on home detention or they could be on electronic monitoring while they're pending court. Next slide. So one of our best prevention programs that we have in the state, and I would say maybe best in the nation. So our pre-arrest alternative to arrest citation, previously known, and some people still call it a civil citation program. So pre-arrest citations are issued at law enforcement discretion based on if it's a misdemeanor charge, they have no history or no significant history with law enforcement. The officer on the street can issue the civil citation to the child, and the family, they have to sign that they agree to participate in the civil citation program. So a child that receives a pre-arrest delinquency citation, the cost to the taxpayers of the state of Florida It's around $386 for a child to go through a civil citation program. If the child does not get the citation and they go through the judicial system, the average cost is $5,500 per child. So the delinquency citations save Floridians millions of dollars every year. But more importantly, the civil citation, delinquency citation is such a benefit to the child. They are not going to have a juvenile record. They will, when a child is issued a delinquency citation, they are issued a worker immediately. Somebody meets with that family within 7 days. During that meeting, we identify the needs of that youth and that family, and we make referrals all immediately. If a child goes through the judicial system, the likelihood is that it's not going to be resolved for 6 to 12 months. And during that time, the child probably forgot what they even did. And more importantly, they did not get any services during that time. And then most of those charges, because of the nature of the offense, that's a misdemeanor, not a public safety risk, not a victim, that the state attorney's office is going to drop that charge. But that child will still have a record that will stay with them for the rest of their life. I always tell a story that when I was a probation officer almost 35 years ago, one of my very first cases, I maintained contact with him for quite some time. And when he was in his 30s, during one of our regular phone conversations, he talked that he was getting ready to have a promotion at work. And they did a background check on him. And when they did a background check, he had a juvenile record. Not only did he not get the promotion, but a job that he had been at for over 10 years, he was terminated because of a shoplifting charge that happened when he was 15 years old. So we don't want a child's mistake to haunt them for the rest of their lives. That's why I always stress that this prevention program, the pre-arrest alternative to arrest citation, is one of the best things that we can offer kids in Florida. We've all probably made mistakes somewhere along the lines when we were a kid, and we don't want that to stick with us forever. So they can get more than one citation. If a child shoplifts when they're 12 years old at 7-Eleven, and then when they're 17, they get in a fight at school, but no one was really hurt. It was just, a stupid. So they do get a second and sometimes third bite of the apple, but it's very beneficial to the child and beneficial to the community. So our next office of services is probation. So when a child picks up a charge in Florida, if they don't get the citation, they are assigned a juvenile probation officer. That juvenile probation officer meets with the youth and family. We have a variety of assessment tools that we complete, and we identify the needs of the family. We make referrals, and this is all before it even gets to the judicial system. We will then make a recommendation to the state attorney's office whether they should file on that charge. And if the state attorney makes the decision that they are going to file on the charge, then the child is placed on probation. We develop a case plan and provide case management duties for the family. There's a lot of things that we have access to. State ID, birth certificate, if they're having problems getting that, we can help the families with that. And we can certainly identify what types of services they need in the community and make those referrals as needed. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, if the court determines that the child is a risk to the community, they've committed a law violation that is serious enough that they need to be removed from the community, we have residential commitment centers throughout the state. A child can be placed at these programs up to 6 months, up until their 21st birthday, depending on the charge that they have. And with some charges, that they can be held up until they're older than 24 on some of our serious offenses. But once a child goes into a commitment program, they are assigned to the same probation officer, something that I've determined here in Circuit 7 is that when you get a case that on intake level, right after they commit the law violation, that I want the same probation officer to be working with that family. Other circuits, if they get committed, they go to a different probation officer. If they on electronic monitoring, they go to a different probation officer. But in Circuit 7, we keep the same probation officer because a lot of these kids come from situations that there isn't any consistency. So if they're assigned to a probation officer in DJJ, there is going to be consistency, someone that works with that family from the time they enter the system until their case is terminated. Next slide. So before they go into the commitment program, we do additional evaluations to determine the needs of the children. And once we make a placement recommendation or determine which commitment program they're going to, we have several different programs that identify and work with special needs that the youth may have, whether it's substance abuse or sex offender program, mental health issues, and all those that you see listed here. So they are placed in a program. We try to keep them as close to home as possible, but that's not always the case. But we place them in programs that we can identify and work on the needs that they have. Next slide. Probably the same information. We make determinations on where the youth go based on their maturity, their age. We have all girls programs and of course all male programs and the special needs that I mentioned. And next slide. So when a child comes out of a commitment program, we have a community reentry team. It's a group of very dedicated professionals from every possible agency that you can think of. So we have these community reentry teams while the child is in the program and prior to their release back into the community, where once again, we identify that the needs that they have, what kind of services do we have to have in place before they come back into the program, into the community. So these community reentry teams are very helpful to make sure everything's in place before the youth comes back to the community. Since July of last year, we previously have had youth come back into the community on post-commitment probation, but as of July 1, all youth are now returned to the community on conditional release. And the difference there is a post-commitment probation youth, if they violate when they come back home, then we have to go through a violation of probation process, and that can be quite lengthy. But now all youth, due to them being on conditional release status, they are still committed youth, but released back to the community. And a transfer hearing, if they violate, is much quicker and more effective to deal with the non-compliance of the youth. Next slide. Well, that's it. That's all there was. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And then also the website link there. Everything that I mentioned is on our website. You can look at that and find out how to self-refer or get local contacts if you need any help. So the example here, if we had access or a contact with this child before they picked up the trespassing and marijuana, trespassing and bringing marijuana on campus. So if we had access to this child before that, if a family called us asking for help, Lindsay previously mentioned the Hope Florida program. So the Hope Florida number 833-GET-HOPE, that works out to be 833-438-4673. They do not have to have involvement with DJJ. They can have involvement with DJJ. But Hope Florida helps single parents, DJJ youth, as I mentioned, youth that have special disabilities or special needs, senior citizens and veterans. All these people qualify for Hope, Florida. So we could have referred that youth to Hope, Florida, but they came into our system. So we would meet with that family and the youth, assess the needs, make the necessary referrals, and get that youth on a better track. So that's how we could have helped with Josie. That's it, Julie.
Excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put your information, your questions into the chat. And so funny, not funny, haha, but interesting, Daniel, because just today I was speaking with somebody that the exact same thing happened in terms of, they had a charge from when they were a younger person and now they're trying to work within the system and can't get, past this tier 2 background screening because of something that happened in their younger years. So definitely try to utilize these programs for your young people so they don't have these charges on their records when they make mistakes, because we all make mistakes, right?